It is Tuesday lunchtime. It's Jim White, Alex Crook and Steve Bruce. We're joined at this lunchtime by former Bournemouth chairman Jeff Mostyn, who is in studio with us and proven to be a very popular guest. I can tell by the huge number of messages that are coming in. We're not done yet, I can tell you. This is all ahead of the publication of Jeff's new book, which is out this week, The Chairman. And Jeff Mostyn is telling us about his massive involvement, although Jeff wouldn't admit that, on what has taken Bournemouth from kind of there to there. It's a hell of a story, and we're getting into the guts of it now. Jeff, 2008, a significant year for the football club. Sadly, administration in February, but the appointment in December of a 31-year-old Eddie Howe, who had previously been a player at the club and was a fan's favourite. Nonetheless, was this something of a punt on your part?
It definitely was, a punt on behalf of the club. And in fairness, the brains behind this was Adam Murray. So, I never, ever would take, a claim for something that wasn't directly attributable to me. You're part of the group. But, it was Adam that saw this. We needed an...
Adam was a fellow director.
Yes, he was. Yeah. So we needed an experienced manager, Steve. But we couldn't afford... Well, we definitely couldn't afford Steve.
I'm very, very cheap these days, I have to tell you, Jeff.
We'll hire you now, just the bus fare, not even a train fare.
He's not good, but he's cheap and punctual.
Yeah, exactly. So, you look at what are the alternatives. You're in administration, you're minus, 10 points one season, minus 17 points the next, 27 points deducted. And suddenly you've got a young Eddie Howe who had met with Kevin, because Kevin was with Rob Newman, who was his assistant manager. Eddie was looking after the youth team, what few we had, players there. And we just thought, what Eddie has got that nobody else has got. He's got the fans behind him. He would have the players behind him. He's been at the club since he was 6 or 7. Cut him in half. He's Bournemouth through and through, and we didn't have to pay him much. So
that's a key part.
And that was the crucial thing. So of course it's a punt, but when you're literally in a position where there is no hope, any appointment just with a modicum of sense, which Eddie was, is going to give you a greater chance of survival.
Jeff, 2008-9 League Two season, 17-point deduction. But Eddie oversaw the Great Escape. Yeah. And this was a sliding doors moment, wasn't it?
Oh, my God. You've just used, literally, I love that phrase, sliding door moments in life, not just in football, but life in general. You make decisions, that literally are balanced on a fine line. And Eddie, and along with Jason, it was an absolute miracle. And, to get within 15 minutes, you think we were 15 minutes away from, I think, oblivion, because the club had no money. We had to retain our position in the Football League. And we would have been, had it been resurrected, whatever the club would have been called, AFC Bournemouth 2009 or 2010, you would have been 7 or 8 rungs down the ladder with no income whatsoever.
Oblivion, as you say.
Absolute oblivion. And then, of course, Steve Fletcher pops up with 15 minutes to go against Grimsby. Miss hits. No, sorry, Steve. Scores probably the most important goal in the football club's history, because you have to compartmentalise where we were then to where we are now, and now would never have happened without that goal, retaining our position in the Football League.
And you told Eddie Howe that, didn't you? Or the board told Eddie Howe, look, if you don't keep this club in the Football League, we are going to go bust. There will be no more AFC Bournemouth. No pressure for Steve.
No pressure on the young manager. Not only is he cheap, but he's taking on the biggest challenge of his life, probably.
It's a heck of a story, Steve, isn't it?
It's a great story in the starting of Eddie. And I'm going to say this publicly now, and I think people have heard it before. When Amanda Staveley asked me, when I was leaving Newcastle, who I would recommend, I recommended Steven Gerrard and Eddie Howe, because I do think he's a very, very talented, and has got to be the next England manager, surely. He's a very, very talented lad, and he's gone on to prove it at Newcastle, and not that he had anything to prove.
What specifically was it about Eddie, Steve?
I just think he's, he's very, very thorough in what he does. He has a really great approach to it. his teams are always up and at you, which I enjoy watching him at the time. If you see, he always has, pace in his team in a wide area. He's just a very, very talented human being, and he's likable.
Yes,
he's a very humble hero.
Yeah, he's you don't see him mouthing off or anything like that. You just what you see is what you get. A very, very, very good human being as well.
And I think he's someone who's driven as well. I know this because he told me. He's driven by the fact his own playing career was
blighted by injury, wasn't it?
You talk about sliding doors moment. They signed 2 players from Bournemouth, Richard Hughes and Eddie Howe, and I think the one they really wanted was Eddie Howe, to be honest. And he was the one that Harry Redknapp said would go on and have a Premier League career. He got injured on his debut, very serious knee injury, came back, injured his knee again, did go back to Bournemouth, but he was never quite the same
that's
player.
Probably why he went into coaching
absolutely
as young as he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, let's get back to Bournemouth. Tell me about this fella, Maxim Demin.
Yes.
I think I was down there one day. And
you were.
You and I were together and I met him.
Yeah.
He wasn't for talking very much, was he?
No, I mean, Maxim's very, very private. And I suppose, again, these are all sliding door moments because if you look at the board at that time, there was myself as chairman, there was Maxim Demin, and also Neil Blake as our chief executive and part of the inner sanctum. And had we all been the same characters, you'd have probably thought that Maxim would have, decided, look, I own the football club now, I'm going to be the chairman. But Maxim was very happy, thank God, to sort of bless me with the role to continue as chairman after I sold him, my part of the football club. And, we just had the most amazing relationship.
He was Russian-born,
He was Russian-born.
He bought 50%.
He bought 50% initially. That was my 50%. And then he bought Eddie Mitchell's 50%. So when Eddie and I brought the club out of administration, that was again with Adam Murray and Steve Sly, Eddie insisted upon having a 1% option on 1% of my shares. And I can understand why. Look, I'd done my time. I bought the football club. In your words, it was a hell of a mess. I think they were more severe than that, but it was. And I don't want to get too hot-headed here and call it what it was.
Yeah.
But it was a mess. And Eddie, I had approached Eddie earlier to come into the club, and he said, with all the debt, the answer's no. If the club goes into administration and comes out the other side, I'd be interested. And I can understand that. He was wearing his head, not his heart. So he insisted on 1% of mine. And I thought, in for a penny, in for a pound. Look, it's better to have 50% of something than previously having 100% of nothing. And he exercised that option. So Maxim bought his shares. Then that was in 2011. And then I'll never forget it, 17th of September, see, I nearly forgot it, 17th of September 2013, he bought Eddie Mitchell out, and immediately I get a phone call from Maxim, who he said, morning, Jeff, he said, I'm having a board meeting with Eddie Howe, Jason Tyndall, and Neil Blake. And my first words were, hang on a moment, I'm vice chairman of the club, which I was then because I stepped down and Eddie Mitchell became chairman. How come he said, Jeff, I am talking, you're listening. So when somebody of Russian origin says, so immediately I adopted God's greatest gift, which was 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I'm now listening. And he said, congratulations, you are the new chairman of the football club. That was the day that he got 100%. And he said, I learned 2 words from Eddie Howe, shoe-in.
Shoe-in.
Yeah,
I love it.
That was it. And I was blessed with becoming the chairman of the football club again. And I had no idea in my wildest dreams what was about to unfold.
I mean, how soon after that did you get to the Premier League?
6 years.
6 years.
Yes, so it was our 2014-15, we were promoted to the Premier League, having been effectively a car crash, minus 17 points in 2008-9. It was just...
What about that, Steve? What about that?
It's an incredible situation. And also since then as well, since what's gone on after that too, it's been quite remarkable.
We're going to bring it right up to date. We'll carry on with the story with Jeff Mostyn. It's a fascinating one after this short break. 12:30 this Tuesday lunchtime.